Howdy, it's Race Sundays. This is what our card looked like for this week. We are in Qatar. And wow, what a week for racing. I mean, it's a sprint weekend. As you can see, buku points for quite a bit of our fantasy team. So it's not the best card you can get. But yeah, it's been a pretty interesting race, and we'll recap that shortly. All right, so we're back, and yeah. And as you can see by the background, it's the Council of Piastri. They're making their appearance, and great reason why. So we'll start off by let's talk about Qatar and
Yeah. So this is the Lusail track. It's been on the calendar once before, 2021. So first thing was half the drivers basically in this field have never raced this track. In any format. And then since 2021, they've completely redone the track, resurfaced it, changed the curbs, done a lot of changes. And unfortunately, that meant that it was like Austria all over again. We had track limits, and more track limits. They were throwing away the penalties. It wasn't quite as bad as Austria, but it was bad. And then the sand was also a huge factor. They had sand all over. The curbs apparently destroy tires, which ended up not so much for the sprint race, but for the main race when they got into it. They actually mandated three mandatory tire changes.
Three tire changes, and if for those of you who don't know the history, I think the last time they raced here, Max Verstappen blew out at the very last two laps or something like close to that. So Pirelli, suggested that there's whole issues with tire degradation.
Well, they were looking at them. They were finding microscopic cuts on them, and then apparently the curbs that were changed to make it better didn't make it better. They made it worse.
And I think the big risk for this race was also sandstorms. I mean, like they were saying that there could be a possibility, and there's not. In
the end, happen. I mean, for the sprint, definitely the wind and the sand were a factor. For the race, not so much. It was just the heat because there was no wind. But so qualifying was all about track limits, and we had two big names go out in Q2.
Yeah, Perez and Sainz out like unbelievable. They were
12th and 13th, I think.
It was something like 12 and 13, and then at the for the actual qualifying itself, it was just crazy. Like Lando tried to squeeze in the very last lap. He had no lap time. Very last lap, he tried to squeeze in a time, and he breached track limit and
so he would have been first. He would have pole, and then he got knocked down the field, and then
I think Piastri was in third.
He was in third, and then he also got in the interview post qualifying. Is told live in the interview that he's actually in sixth because he got a track limits violation.
So he's like, and so throughout the weekend he made jokes that he's like, oh, did the FIA change my? I thought you were gonna tell me that they I didn't get pole.
Anyways, it was gonna be interesting for the race on Saturday and then Sunday, and then Saturday was sprint shootout. So sprint qualifying, it was kind of weird. So because of the tire thing and some concerns, they actually had a warm-up lap.
So I've never seen that really because it's more of a discovery session.
It was weird. So they had a warm-up for the sprint, then they went the sprint, and then I think it was just it was going to be Red Bull, but specifically it was going to be because Perez was having all sorts of issues with track limit. Was it going to be Verstappen? Was it going to be Piastri? Or was it going to be Norris? That's what it was coming down to for pole.
Yeah. So, and in the sprint, when we actually started the sprint, the actual sprint itself, we saw, two types of tires. We saw the soft and we saw the mediums.
Yeah.
Right? So
you had Piastri on pole. So first pole, awesome, for the sprint. You had Russell second, Verstappen third. And actually, Norris, once again, had track limits or he would have been sitting on pole.
Yeah.
So, so the softs.
So we'll actually start opening packs.
The softs were we're gonna go into the results, aren't we?
Sure. Let's go through the result. Who actually won first, and we'll sort of recap the sprint really quickly. So, in third place, we had a McLaren. We had Lando. And who do you think is in first? Well, let's go second. And second. And the reason why we have the Council of Piastri is because first win ever. first F1 win.
Yeah.
So not
Not
necessarily
a race win. He's not a Grand
not a
Prix
Grand Prix
winner.
winner, but a race winner. He is a race winner. He's Norris actually acknowledged that he got his first race before
Norris got his first win, his first race win before Piastri got before Norris. But in fairness, Norris should have had it. He kind of screwed up in Russia, so we'll just point that out.
Yeah.
No, amazing stuff from Piastri, and Verstappen clinched his. It was kind of weird. So Piastri wins his first win, granted the sprint, but Verstappen clinched his third world title.
Yeah. So if you
they celebrated more Verstappen than they celebrated Piastri.
So fun fact. I mean, realistically, Verstappen has not actually won clinched a world championship under normal circumstances. Yeah. Right, so I think if you recap his first time, he won the controversial world championship. Second time was in Suzuka, where it was half points awarded for the rain.
It was like safety car short distance.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and then this year it's he's basically winning. Not even in first place, he won in second in a sprint.
Which was a safety car, 19 laps.
19 laps.
They started so a couple of Ferraris, Russell. I don't know if anyone else.
It was just actually the ones that counted was really Ferrari and Russell.
Yeah, and then I don't know if anyone else was on softs. And then Hamilton was on mediums. The rest of them were all on mediums. And as it turned out, the softs were great for the starts. Like every time they had safety cars, and there were a lot of safety cars.
Oh my gosh! So the very first lap, you had Liam Lawson going out. So
on his own.
So it's interesting because the softs are actually that would have actually helped all the softs. But then, yeah, the other goat. But then you had Sargent going out later on, and again helping the softs, and then last but not least, you had Ocon and Perez making a Hulkenberg sandwich. Yeah. And Ocon actually took out Perez. Like, it was no doing of his own. Ocon just took Perez out.
Like, basically, Ocon went into Hulkenberg, went to Perez. Perez spins out, Ocon spins out, Hulkenberg somehow survives it.
Yeah, no idea. Well, actually, Hulkenberg actually retired later on in that race.
Did he retire?
Yeah, he did retire because he was actually I looked at the points, he was in the negatives and points from that one.
He did, but he didn't retire right away.
He didn't retire right. It was like a couple of laps later. He ended up just retiring from that race.
Epic moment.
Epic moment.
Oh, let's pause here for a second.
So apparently, this guy,
he may or may not have hit his trainer.
He allegedly hit his trainer or shoved his trainer. It looked like more like he shoved his trainer, but I don't know.
He also threw his steering wheel at somebody.
Yeah, contextually, we can't really say because you don't really see it, right? In the actual video,
he walks off screen,
and he kind of looks like he's shoving him, but it's not really.
It's hard to tell.
Oh,
a real goat,
Seb.
Yeah.
So that was essentially the sprint race.
Yeah. Okay, and then the feature race.
Yeah, so the feature race. Let's talk about the feature race.
Well, first of all, and I was upset about this, so Sainz did not start the race. Apparently, there was something wrong with his car, and they couldn't fix it in time, even though his car was fine during the sprint.
Yeah, if Perez got to use his car.
His chassis.
His chassis, right? So I don't know. He could have.
No. So basically, I don't know what happened because I didn't hear the full story. But whatever it was, they discovered it right before the race, and it wasn't something they had time to fix. And obviously, it wasn't a chassis thing. It was something to do with the engine or electrical or something. So, anyways, Sainz wasn't racing, which sucks. Because I had Ferrari on my fantasy team.
Yeah, I did too.
And had Perez, so it did not help. Perez was already starting at the back because he didn't have a good qualifying, and he started from the pit lane because he took damage to his car in the sprint. So
they had to fix it. He had no choice but to fix it, right? So he started in the pit lane.
Super negative.
Yeah. So
we were hoping he'd drive up, but he did sort of. Let's talk. Well, let's talk about the incident that you forced.
Oh yeah. So apparently I have this voodoo powers of causing race incidents. So I at the start of the race I see Verstappen racing alongside Russell and Hamilton, and I yell, Mercs take each other, or take each other out, or take out Verstappen, or something along those
No, you
lines.
said the Mercs are going to take each other out.
Mercs are going to take each other out,
And
and they did. I mean, it's interesting because realistically, driver of the day should have been George Russell because Lewis Hamilton actually took out George Russell, and he was actually in the very last position. And Russell was, yeah. I mean, Lewis Hamilton ended up taking himself out. And he said it was his fault. Initially he thought it was Russell that took him out, but realistically it was Russell that took himself. Sorry, it's no, Hamilton admitted that he took himself out and he apologized for it. So yeah, I mean, really a lackluster.
After that, I thought there was going to be so many people going out because of what happened. There was really not a lot of people going out.
Yeah.
It was Sainz and Hamilton, was it?
Sainz and Hamilton. Well, actually, Sargent took himself out, but
well, he was sick.
He was not. It was actually a really hot race, and
they were all dying at the heat.
They were all dying.
A bunch of them had to go to medical afterwards.
Even Fernando Alonso said, talked about how his butt's really hot, and he needed.
Speaking of which, it's like your channel. What's with your powers today?
Fernando, yeah. I looked for Fernando.
Looks like he's cold today.
And Pierre Gasly, who had a decent race.
No, he didn't. He had like 3 penalties.
Oh, I mean,
track limits.
Everybody got penalties.
He and Perez and Stroll and Albon, and I think Piastri and Leclerc avoided them, but a bunch of them got 5-second penalties and multiple 5-second penalties.
There you go.
There's Seb.
Omar. It's interesting seeing Omar here. I actually don't remember him being on the Aston Martin crew, but I guess he was. He just did great.
It's like Latifi's not even there.
There you go.
You have to add him to the council.
I need to add him to the council. Somewhere. I'll add him to the council. Would I get this cart graded? Probably not. If you look at it, it's kind of actually off-centered a little left to right. Probably wouldn't get this graded. Yeah, so if somebody wants this, let me know. And you got Bottas.
He had a great race. Both he and Joe. Both him and Joe. Both in the points.
Yeah. And then you have Hamilton. I mean, realistically, I thought this was going to be a no negative type weekend where cars were taking themselves out, and we're like, oh man, like I wish we had that.
Well, we didn't know about it. So who won? Let's
stop and talk about who actually won. So in third, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We have Lando Norris, who actually drove up from 10th.
He drove up the field.
Pretty darn good.
The McLaren's starting to turn their rocket ship too.
100%. I mean, you saw that 110 points for McLaren, meaning that they actually had a really good race weekend for themselves.
Best constructor
at this point, and in second place we have Oscar Piastri. Again, obviously with the council of Piastris behind him. That's the only real reason we're celebrating with that, because I think he's a fantastic driver, and as you can see, I've been investing in Piastri for a while now. So, trying to go for the rainbow, it's going to be a really difficult task. And obviously, number one, we have
the world champion,
Max Verstappen. Now, I'm actually gonna pause there for a second and talk about how in this race itself too, you had Lando. And it kind of drives me nuts that he's always begging for team orders to be moved up ahead of whoever it is. Like if you fall back to Monza, where Ricardo had the same thing, Lando asked for the same thing. He's like, are we having team orders to switch up? He's like, no, he actually earned it. Like, dude, earn your spot, man. Sorry.
But the reality is every driver, I don't care if it's Verstappen behind Perez, if it's Lando behind Piastri, if it's Leclerc behind Sainz, or vice versa, all the drivers when you have 2 teammates back to back, one of them will always ask to swap with the other one. That's just the reality.
Yeah. Schumacher. I mean, so rumor has it.
I think he's gonna have a seat.
He might actually have a seat back in. It could be Williams, but James Voles said. I think it's Voles. I said that
they're trusting Sargent until the end of this year, but that doesn't mean he has a seat for next year.
I don't know. Maybe if Andretti comes in, there you go. Theo Pourchaire.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad looking card.
It's pretty good.
And Beauchamp. Beauchamp actually started off the season really well. But yeah, it didn't end. He's not doing very well still. Yeah.
Sainz, the smooth his
Ferrari?
First custom Ferrari. I was watching a video of him getting his first Ferrari. And by the way, he had a Golf before that, so the guy deserves to get a Ferrari. But He actually has it say smooth operator inside of it. It's awesome.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Tsunoda had a good race. I mean, he didn't get in the points, but he was moving up the field. He did well. He was actually better than Lawson.
Yep. Well.
Oh, Lawson went out. Didn't he?
Not in this. Not in the no. Not in this. Not in the. Sorry. Lawson went out in the sprint race.
Oh, you're right. It was a
sprint.
He
did not go out in the.
He did not go out in
He
the
actually
race.
finished. So
he did finish the race. He was just way down the points.
He was just way down the points. Unfortunately, I mean, I still think
I shouldn't say points. He was out of the points.
I still think he did well. I mean,
Mr. Saturday.
If you talk about points, who actually lost points was Perez with was it
negative
2-3 time track limit.
Well,
penalties.
he finished. He wouldn't have been negative in the fantasy if he had finished where he did finish, which was 8th, or 9th or something like that. But because he took a penalty, that's why Zhou moved up. So
yeah,
anyways,
both. I think Zhou and Bott.
They both shifted, but yeah.
Oh, actually, even in the sprint, Leclerc had a penalty, and Albon actually jumped up into the points too.
Albon was driving well.
Albon drives really well all the time.
Although he did have time. I just don't like that. I mean, tell me what you guys think in the comments, but I feel like the track limits thing is just annoying.
Yeah. Look at this. It's he's about to give you a jump kick.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton with a hi-ya.
Do you know what I really like? I like Max's World Championship helmet he was wearing the race today.
Oh yeah?
That's shiny.
And it's a Williams Racing. I bet you it's the GOAT. Or it's either the GOAT or Albon. Oh yeah, it's the GOAT. It's the GOAT.
I like their Williams cars, the livery they have now.
Yeah.
The old school.
This is a Bahrain refractor. That's interesting. That's a really nice looking card. So I didn't realize that they had the Ferris wheel in Bahrain as well.
I think Ferris wheel everywhere. But yeah, no, Max's helmet, his world champ, so he switched. In the sprint, he was wearing his regular white helmet, and then in the race today, he had on it was a black and less white, more black, and then had a gold, a really bright, shiny gold lion on it. It was awesome.
And Nikita Mazepin.
That's just a waste of a card.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Let's just burn it. And Yuki.
Oh my god. All I can think of with Yuki, though, is those lollipop videos we've been watching.
Who let the child on his track? Danny Rick.
Danny Rick's back next race.
Is he going to be back in Qatar?
No.
Oh, sorry, in Austin.
2 weeks. In
Austin?
Yeah, he's
sorry.
racing in Austin.
We're in Austin this week. I was sorry, in Qatar this week. We're in Austin next time.
You don't know where you are right now.
I have no idea where I am. It's Thanksgiving. I've had a little too much turkey and just a little sleepy. But yeah, Danny Rick. So, I guess if you all have Lawson on your card, you might have to change them out. And
you will.
In the next...
and if you forgot to change it out and you've had Danny Rick this whole time, well...
Sorry. Rip to your fantasy team at this point. All right, last card, not least. Yeah. Oh, it's just a Mick Schumacher. I mean, not a bad looking card. It's just a refractor. So, yeah.
I think Schumacher would do well if they put him in the Williams. I think he would benefit from having someone like Albon teach him, because Albon had a not dissimilar...
He is a good mentor versus having just trying to compete with Nikita Mazepin, right? So
I'm just thinking Albon's been through his own journey, and he was out of F1 for a while and came back in, right? He lost his seat. So I think
I don't know. I mean, you could say that Mick could have learned from Magnussen as well.
He could have, but I think Gunther doesn't have the patience that Knowles
or
does.
Gene. Probably Gene.
No.
But yeah, so let us know what you think about this race. I thought that the sprint was actually a lot better than the actual feature race itself. It was more It was definitely more interesting for sure. And celebrating someone's first win is always great. So especially and the world and congrats to Max for the world championship as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, next time we are in Austin. Maybe we'll try to get tickets for that one. All right, folks, have a great week.